What if the person you trust with your most precious memories starts treating them as their own? Sometimes care is the perfect trap. That's exactly what happened when Grandma's house became the center of family intrigue. What happened next changed everything. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. Someone else's care, someone else's home. In a small town where old houses stood side by side like elderly relatives, lived Margaret, a woman whose wrinkles mapped out not sorrow but stubborn joy. Her daughter and grandkids had long scattered, but one person stayed close, always playing the role of the dutiful relative. Her niece Annie. "Annie is such a darling," sighed neighbor Mrs. Pearson, watching the young woman hurry up Margaret's walk with a bag in hand. "She shines a bit too much for herself if you ask me," old Mr. Holmes muttered over the fence, but who listened to pensioners? Margaret greeted Annie with warm tea and an even warmer look. After all, old age is less frightening when someone reminds you where the medicine is and how to work the TV. This day began on an especially touching note. Annie brought a homemade pie and a new cell phone for her grandmother. "So you're always just a call away," she smiled, hiding her irritation behind perfectly painted lips. "Oh, and Grandma, I thought I'd tidy up the attic a bit for you. Those stairs are rough these days, huh?" "Of course, honey," Margaret nodded, not noticing Annie's eyes linger on the old china hutch where Grandpa's porcelain animals still sat. Nothing seemed amiss at first. But soon after the help began, Margaret noticed odd things. One week, her favorite silver spoon vanished. Then an old brooch. One day, the wedding painting was just gone. "Annie, have you seen it?" Margaret asked, trying not to sound suspicious. "No, Grandma. Maybe you put it somewhere?" Annie replied with an airy wave, not meeting her eyes. "You really have to be careful these days, you know. Anyone could wander in." Margaret frowned. Something wasn't right. The kitchen no longer smelled of care and cinnamon but of an anxiety that clung to everything, no matter how many pies came out of the oven. The pattern continued. Annie came more often, and left with little things. A box of old cards for keepsakes, a couple of pots for the cottage, even the ancient radio Margaret relied on to fall asleep during lonely winters. At night, left alone, Margaret would sit by the window and watch twilight settle over the house. Once this place was overflowing with life. Now it felt like a jar with a hole in the bottom, memories leaking out one by one. Then one night she heard floorboards creak. Her heart thudded, fear and suspicion squeezing tighter than any winter chill. A shadow flickered in the hallway. Annie? A burglar? Or just a guest with a conscience set too low? Margaret decided. In the morning, she would call her daughter and tell her everything. Only the phone rang and rang. No answer. That was the moment Margaret's resolve returned, stronger than it had been in years. She would get to the truth, even if it meant facing her own frailty. She just had no idea how high the cost of truth could be. What happened next changed everything. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. Are you sure you really know your own family? Sometimes a gentle hand reveals a grip of steel. This is the turning point. Everything you've waited for is here. Stay tuned to see who stands their ground. Old things, new rules. Margaret had always considered herself unshakable. Childhood memories were ration books and standing in line for a single toy. Complaining wasn't her style, and drama over nothing was for other people. But now her insides were boiling. She woke up early that morning, a troubled dream still haunting her. Her late sister warning, "Don't sleep, Margaret. Keep your eyes open." Still foggy-eyed, Margaret did her rounds. Where's the porcelain elephant? Grandpa's lighter? The closet? Empty, as if her favorite blanket never existed. The door slammed. Annie, bright and brisk as always, bustling about as if she hadn't spent the week ferrying useless items to her car. "Oh, Grandma, you're being silly. These knickknacks are just gathering dust. I'm only helping making things fresher, cleaner." Annie laughed, eyeing the old dishes with distaste. Margaret swallowed, her fear tasting sour and sharp. "Annie, You know, every piece is a memory. Each thing is a piece of a life. Grandma, please let the past go. Annie's patience was thin. You need to rest, not cling to old junk. At that moment, Mrs. Pearson peeked in. She'd noticed how bare the house was getting. Everything all right, Margaret? I hear you have helpers these days. Annie's eyes flashed cold. We're fine here, thank you very much. The neighbor nodded, but her gaze lingered on the boxes near the door. Margaret, if you need anything, I'm right next door. After she left, Annie went straight for the old chest of drawers, the one she'd already shown interested buyers, presenting items as leftovers from the former owner. Annie, what are you doing? Margaret's voice trembled. Tidying up, Grandma. There's a mess and I just want you comfortable, Annie replied flatly without looking up. Something inside Margaret snapped. I'll manage my own home, Annie. Please leave these things alone. Annie scoffed, as if the idea of resistance from a frail old lady was a joke. You can barely make your own tea, and you think you'll protect this house? Don't make me laugh, Grandma. For the first time, Margaret truly felt small in her own home. Shame and anger swirled. When did she become a burden in the place she built? Later, when Annie left to run errands, Margaret mustered her courage and opened her documents drawer. There, tucked away, were her will, old letters and photographs, her entire past in one small file. Her heart whispered, do something or soon nothing will be left. No memories, no house, no pride. That night, Margaret called her daughter again. Honey, there's trouble here. Mom, I can't talk now, I'm in a meeting, her daughter interrupted. Everything's fine, Annie's helping. Listening to the dial tone, Margaret finally understood. Real care isn't phone calls and holiday gifts. It's standing up for your own history, your own boundaries. And she vowed tomorrow everything would change. No one knew how far she'd go. This is just the beginning. Don't miss what Margaret decides next. Even the weakest can surprise you. What do you do when your family turns into a pack of hunters, and you're the prey? That's when the ones who pretended not to see your pain finally show up. Everything is just starting. Don't miss what Grandma does next. Even the weakest can surprise you. Relatives on the horizon. The phone woke Margaret before sunrise. Aunt Margaret, it's Tom. Tom. She struggled to place the nephew she hadn't seen since Christmas 3 years ago. I heard you're having trouble. Thought I'd come by and help out around the house. She didn't know who'd tipped Tom off, but she could smell the scent of profit in the air, thicker than even Annie's cinnamon pies. That day, 2 more arrived. Her daughter Martha and her youngest grandson Oliver, both suddenly finding time to visit Grandma. Their eyes swept over the walls, the boxes, the nearly empty silverware cabinet. Mom, you look tired. Maybe it's time to consider a nursing home? They'll take better care of you there, Martha said, voice sweet but her eyes glued to her phone. No, Mom's fine here, Annie cut in with a possessive glare. I'm handling everything. The room grew tense. Every sentence felt like a rusty blade. For the first time, Margaret felt not like a mother or grandmother, but a prize at a family auction. Oliver sat by the window, scrolling through his phone. Hey, did you see Dad's stamp collection? It's gone. Margaret's smile was brittle. Oliver, nothing's disappeared. But if someone took something, they'll bring it back. Annie launched her next attack. Maybe we should just split things up now, Grandma. While you can still remember what's what before you know. She trailed off, meeting Margaret's steely gaze. I still have my wits, Annie, Grandma said coldly. And I'll make the decisions here. What followed was a round of petty, poisonous squabbling. Who'd pay the utility bills, who'd manage the car, who'd claim the last bits of property. Every line was a hint. If you can't handle it, hand it over. Margaret wiped her hands on her apron, looking at her kin with bitterness and disbelief. Who would have thought her loved ones would turn on her at the scent of weakness? When the house finally emptied, Margaret picked up the phone and dialed Mrs. Pearson. Could you come by tomorrow? I need your help. She realized she'd have to act alone. Even if her family had turned into scavengers, real friends might still exist. But she didn't know that Mrs. Pearson's visit would change everything. Revelation is coming. Next chapter. A surprising alliance and the first real blow to the cunning niece. You don't want to miss this. What secrets do walls keep when whispers of plans echo behind them? Sometimes surviving means doing the impossible. Revelation is coming. Don't miss it. Margaret's ready for the real fight for her life and home. The old lady's alliance. The next morning Mrs. Pearson arrived, armed not just with baked goods, but with advice worth more than any family support. You know, dear, when my sister almost lost her apartment, we went straight to a lawyer. You need to protect yourself before it's too late. Margaret listened, stunned. Why did this neighbor care more than her own kin? I don't want a scandal. A scandal is what you'll have if you're left with nothing. Here's what we'll do. I'll visit you often until this is sorted out. From that day, Margaret and Pearson became a team. Margaret made a list of missing items. Pearson took photos of each room, each date, making a loss report. And remember, Pearson whispered, don't sign anything Annie brings, no matter how much she begs. That evening, Annie arrived with a new contract, supposedly about joint household management. Sign this, Grandma, it's just a formality. Makes paying bills easier, Annie purred, averting her eyes. Let me see that, Annie. I'll have my lawyer look it over first, Margaret said, steady now, watching Annie's hand tremble. That was the moment something changed. For the first time, Annie saw in her grandmother not weakness, but a dangerous opponent. At dinner, Margaret noticed Annie's glances. Angry and sharp, like a predator denied its prey. Why do you need a lawyer? Don't you trust me? I love my family, but this house is my fortress, Margaret replied, and Pearson nodded. That night, Margaret slept well for the first time in weeks. She knew tomorrow would bring a real battle, but she wouldn't be alone. Even old ladies can outsmart those who think themselves cleverest. Next chapter, the final showdown for the house, the big reveal, and a family secret no one expected. You won't be able to look away. Who wins in the battle for inheritance? Cunning or love? Sometimes family war exposes things nobody wanted to see. This is the finale. What happens next will change everyone. Don't go anywhere. The real reason for this spectacle is about to be revealed. The last act. Margaret called the family together, this time on her terms. I want to speak to everyone, she said firmly, staring down Annie, Martha, and Oliver. Nobody commands this house but me. Annie forced a smile, her face taut. Grandma, maybe we shouldn't make this public? No, Annie. I'm not staying silent anymore. Margaret spread out her list of missing items, photographs of empty shelves, and legal documents Mrs. Pearson had helped her prepare. You all thought I was too weak to defend myself. But this house, it's my life, not just walls. At that moment, the lawyer, Pearson's friend, entered and read out the new will. Everything remained in Margaret's name, with no property or sales allowed without her written consent. Annie's hands shook. I was only trying to help. You misunderstood everything. No, Annie. You forgot something. Real family is measured by respect, not casseroles or boxes, Margaret said, cold and sad. Martha cried. Oliver looked away. Only Mrs. Pearson smiled. A victory only the old truly understand. Afterward, the house was filled with a new, powerful silence. Not the emptiness of before, but a peaceful hush. Margaret stepped outside, breathing deep. She defended her home and her right to be respected. She forgave her family that night, but promised herself never to let anyone decide her fate again. Not even in the name of care. One family drama ends, but every house hides its own truths. Are you sure you know yours? The stories are only beginning. What happens after victory, when your family doesn't know how to forgive? Sometimes silence is only the calm before the storm. Don't miss it. In this chapter, Grandma faces something she never expected, even after all the drama. A winter's feast. A week had passed since the talk. Margaret's house was eerily quiet. No morning calls from her daughter, no visits from Oliver, and Annie had vanished without a trace. Mrs. Pearson kept dropping by, bringing soup and local gossip, but even her jokes felt awkward these days. Margaret sat at the kitchen table, sorting through old letters and photos. Suddenly she found one marked personal. Her daughter's handwriting shaky and tense. She opened it. "Mom, I don't know how to talk to you. You think I don't love you, but it's more complicated. We're all tired of carrying this house, your whims and memories. Annie crossed the line, yes, but you're no angel either. Sometimes I'm scared I'll turn out like you. So stubborn and proud. Forgive me if you can." Tears stung Margaret's eyes. She realized that victory didn't always bring relief. In saving the house, she'd lost something invisible, the thread that had tied her family together for decades. That evening, she stared at the phone but couldn't bring herself to call her daughter. Bitterness and hurt swirled. Why did every family conversation end in blame or silence? Mrs. Pearson suggested they invite everyone to dinner. Talk things out, person to person, without papers or shouting. You know, Margaret, the only weapon us old folks have is memory. Sometimes, telling the whole truth is the only way to find peace. But was her family ready for truths they'd all been hiding for years? The next meeting could change everything. You'll find out who betrayed first, and who was ready to forgive. What secrets does the past hide, when everyone prefers silence? Sometimes the most bitter truth can be the start of something new. Stay here. Everything buried under years of lies is about to surface. The family table. By Sunday evening, the house was filled with voices again. Martha arrived first, clutching a store-bought pie. Oliver trailed behind, eyes glued to his phone. Even Annie showed up, drained and silent. The table was heavy with silence, everyone eating as if under punishment. Margaret broke it first. "I'm sorry it's come to this. I never wanted our home to be a battleground. But maybe that's the only way we know how to talk in this family." Martha smirked, staring off. "You always decide everything yourself. We learned not to think for you." Annie suddenly bristled. "Don't blame Grandma. You all just waited for her to slip. I tried to help, but I'm tired of being alone against everyone." Arguments erupted, old wounds, disappointments, and resentments poured out. Martha's jealousy over the favorite granddaughter, Oliver's bitterness at getting the least, Annie's lifelong feeling of being an outsider. In the heat of the fight, Mrs. Pearson slammed her hand on the table. "All of you, you're grown kids. My own grandkids don't even remember my name. But you still have a chance, a small one. Think about what you're leaving this house with. Dishes or maybe a little love." Her words stunned everyone. Margaret sighed. "I don't want to die as the enemy of my children and grandchildren. Let's try to start again. Let this house be a home. Not a battlefield, but a place for memories and forgiveness." That night, for the first time in ages, they had a real conversation. There was laughter, tears, apologies. The old walls heard life again. But will that be enough to heal the past? Or do some wounds never close? In the final chapter, the greatest test. What happens when a new face enters the house? Margaret's past isn't done with her yet. Can you build a new life on the ruins of the old? Sometimes second chances come from where you least expect them. This is the finale. Ahead, a final secret of the house, and a choice that will shape the family's future. A home for all. A month later, a letter arrived for Margaret. The handwriting was unfamiliar. The return address missing. "Dear Mrs. Margaret, I'm your neighbor from the house where your cousin Ruth used to live. I found her will and some letters meant for you. I thought you'd want to see them." Inside were yellowed pages, Ruth's handwriting. "I always envied your strength, Margaret. I'm sorry our family drifted so far apart. Forgive me if you can." Margaret wept for a long time, honest, cleansing tears. For the first time in years, she felt truly light. She understood now. Their family's pain came from pride, unspoken words, and the fear of being alone. The family began gathering more often. Martha and Annie cooked dinners together. Oliver fixed the old fence. Pearson came by with stories, and Margaret started collecting family histories for her grandkids. The most important thing, she would say at the table, is that this house never becomes just a prize. Let it be our shelter, not a battlefield. One evening, a new neighbor knocked, a young teacher needing help with his move. The family welcomed him in, just as Margaret had once welcomed everyone to her home. So be it, she thought. Let someone get a fresh start here. And in that moment, she felt not just the owner of her house, but its true guardian. Every home holds its own truth. Are you sure you know everything about yours? The stories are only beginning.